Here we are again. I'm so excited to be able to share some more about my plans for Bethel Campgrounds. At the start of this course, when I learned that we would be brainstorming a business idea, that we could apply all of the knowledge that we gain in this course to that idea to help expand upon it, I was really hoping that I could utilize my long-term goal to own and operate a multi-use campground. I dream to cultivate a property where groups of people can come to connect with each other and to God and nature. My primary focus of what to facilitate are group retreats, youth camps, leadership intensives, and team building exercises. The vision for my idea has not evolved drastically, but through interviewing friends, I have identified additional ways to use the campground. It's vital that I diversify my revenue streams. Let's say I owned a retail space and I leased to a tenant. There would be little need for me to attract a wide array of customers because that one tenant would occupy the space long term. However, the customers renting my campground will likely only reserve it from anywhere between 1 day to a week. So I need these additional ways to utilize the property, such as vendor markets, and there's a lot of those. Music festivals, I can build and lease storage units to customers, host weddings, and even rent the use of an office and its equipment. One way the material in this course has helped me to gain knowledge was remind me to gain knowledge. Specifically to perform secondary and primary research on the demographics surrounding my property. If I discover that the majority of my surrounding population are seniors, then I could contact the Quilting Expo and offer to host an exhibit. If I discover that the majority of my surrounding population are young families, I could contact groups like the Boy Scouts or Homeschool Association and offer to host a talent show or a movie night. While I would like to attract all demographics, being equipped with the knowledge of who populates my neighborhood will support my decision of what marketing efforts to invest in first. So my goal with this value proposition statement was not to list the events a customer could rent our facilities for, because that could limit their imagination. I simply wanted to make it clear that we provide the space and the customer chooses how to use it. So let's talk about funding and business structure. I plan to construct Bethel Campgrounds as a nonprofit, specifically a 501c3. I don't expect to grow wealthy from this business venture, but I do plan for the campground to support itself and my family who operate it. My goal is for the business to earn a profit and to reinvest those funds into the betterment of the facilities. And I believe with the nature of the groups we will host and perhaps even coordinate some of our own, I can easily attain tax-exempt status. Because my business will be structured as a nonprofit, it's more likely that I can receive funding through donations and grants. I plan to have a campaign manager to oversee marketing for donations. I'd also like to work with a grant writer, particularly in the early phases. And I believe with the flexible nature of the campgrounds that we could identify more than one grant to apply for. I'm willing to consider an investor for a small portion of the funding. However, since I don't anticipate turning much profit for several years, I would feel more comfortable with a low interest loan from a place like the Small Business Association. Of course, I will be bootstrapping all that I can. There will be fundraisers, and once there is land acquired, it will be used to host whatever events that it can sustain at that time. Deciding on a price point to rent the entire campground was not easy for me because there's endless combinations of the length of occupancy and the buildings rented, but generally my goal is to be just above the price point where my cheapest competitors are. I can't charge rates matching my highest competitors because I'm not going to have an abundance of amenities or campground staff. But I plan to charge slightly more than my lowest competitors because my facilities will be more updated. In Module 7 and 10, I compared the costs of renting the entire campground at 2 different locations for 3 days and 2 nights. The price ranged from $7,000 to $12,000. So I decided on $8,600. I shared this with the previous director of someone who rented the campground and coordinated a retreat, and she asked if I would accept just an even $8,000. But of course, I need to know my expenses and my break-even point before I even consider bargaining. After studying the pricing sheet that I cited in Module 7, I have estimated these following rental fees. Okay, so here is the first draft of a logo for Bethel Campground. 3 elements are conveying that this company is connected to nature: a tree on a rolling hill in front of the sun. For the font, I have chosen Georgia, which looks strong and established. And of course, we have the color, which is a leafy green. Now, it's important to me to have a logo that will look just as striking in other forms: black and white, embroidered on hats, printed in different colors on t-shirts. This all aids in designing congruent branding across all media and merchandise. Let's talk about the buyer persona. Mrs. Chadwell is the chairwoman for a volunteer community that plans 4 weekend youth retreats per year. She is my ideal customer. I'm also averaging her characteristics with the previous chairman, Mr. Garofalo. So my ideal customer is likely between 40 to 50 years old and financially stable with a flexible work schedule. This person also has a passion to see other people connect with each other and grow closer to God. And they're typically involved in the lives of their own children and can be found volunteering in their church. When Mrs. Chadwell searches online for campgrounds to rent, she'll find a dozen within a couple hours drive. So what can Bethel Campgrounds offer that most do not? Flexibility. Flexibility in pricing. Depending on combination of buildings to be rented and the length of time that they'll be used, the number of people occupying them, and many other factors, discounts can be given. For example, let's say a group wanted to rent 2 bunkhouse buildings, but one of them was only going to be used to sleep 4 people instead of its max capacity of 40. I could offer them a discounted rate for that building because it's going to undergo less wear and tear. Another form of flexibility is a willingness from the property owner to collaborate with the customer to meet their need. So let's say a youth group wanted to have an outdoor volleyball court really badly. As the campground owner, I could offer to purchase the materials and then they can supply the labor to install it. So now let's get a glimpse into what the future could offer with an entrepreneurial spirit. After Bethel Campgrounds has formed its board and legal entity and is recognized by the state and the federal government, these are some short-term goals to start the foundation of an online presence, which is to publish a website and get his social media accounts up and running, where we can share the heart of Bethel Campgrounds and create links to have donate buttons. The next goal is to identify land to purchase, and then I can work with a contracting friend to create a free estimate on the cost for the first phase of buildings. And after all this is done and I know how much money I need for the property and the essential phase of construction, then I can apply for funding. The main objective for my long-term goals is to have all of the buildings finished to host a group retreat of up to 240 people. I believe with the proper funding, a reasonable time frame is to complete this construction within 5 years. While some buildings are being finished, the completed buildings can be rented out for smaller events, and the property can be used for outdoor things like vendor markets. My objective in coordinating all of this is to be able to pay for the full amount of the loan or mortgage payment each month, and to be able to do that within 5 years. I am going to carry this project with me into the future. I have no doubt that times will come when I will reference my findings and remind myself of the ideas that I've gathered. I would like to become bolder in sharing this dream, not for the encouragement to pursue it, because I know that I will, but for the input to improve it and to improve my plans until they become a reality. I also believe that in doing this, I will slowly identify my support system who could possibly become my future partners for the build and the operation. Outside of this course, my main focus is to fully apply myself to my current job of owning and operating a manufactured housing community, because I know that a lot of these skills will be transferable to Bethel Campgrounds. I also want to dedicate more time to developing the admin side of my father's nonprofit, especially since I plan to structure my future business very similarly. And as always, I will continue to volunteer and sacrifice my time and talents to bring others closer to each other and to God. Thank you.